I have actually been wanting to talk about something for a while. I've never made a video, so I'm sure this isn't going to be great. I just thought it would be easier than making you guys read all of this information. So I'm going to read it. So I am going to read mostly the notes that I have because they're just right here on the computer screen. Um, People just think that Roswell happened the day before it was reported in the newspaper. People think that, you know, it happened on July 7th, it was reported on the 8th, and then wham bam, it was a weather balloon, ma'am. But it wasn't. On June 23rd, 1947, a man by the name of Kenneth Arnold had actually seen 9 UFOs flying around the Cascade Mountains near Mount Rainier. He called them flying saucers because the reporter asked him how they flew, and he said, like flying saucers would if you skipped them across the water, forever dubbing them flying saucers. The only point in mentioning this is that he was the very first credited person to ever witness UFOs, and he created the term flying saucers. Um, the crash of Roswell actually happened on July 2nd, 1947. There was a really bad thunderstorm, and many people really don't know what happened. They just think there was one crash, and then that's the end of it. I mean, it really was just, I think it was just one crash, but I mean, it skipped. It hit at Mac Brazel's farm, and then it skid, and then it landed somewhere else. Roswell was the cover up. They were trying to cover up that there were two crashes. There was one here with the actual UFOs and the aliens, and then the one here. They were trying to just convince people that there was only one crash. That's the cover up. Not the weather balloon story, that's the cover up for the cover up. It's like a double cover up, if you get what I'm saying. Most people don't realize this. Anyways, so there was the thunderstorm, okay? There was a super loud crash. Mac thought, probably just thunder. So the next day, though, when he woke up, his sheep were stuck. He looked out his window or whatever to go check on them, and they were just stuck. They were there was debris all over his farm, and they were afraid to go around it. He literally had to herd his sheep around the debris that was on his farm because they were scared of it. Do you think they would be scared of a weather balloon? I don't. Anyways, so he actually did not report it immediately. This happened on July 2nd. It wasn't reported in the paper until July 8th. So he actually went to his neighbor's house and took some of the debris there. And he took some 3 miles up the road to a little shed of his somewhere else on the property. Yeah, he had a huge property 3 miles up the road. Yeah. Um, Anyways, he took it to his neighbor's house, Floyd and Loretta Procto. I think that was their names. Yeah. Anyway, Mac Brazel. Loretta suggested that he reported the incident and even spoke of it on the documentary that I watched, but I didn't write what she said. I don't know why. Maybe it's at the bottom. But she did suggest that he report it, and on July 6th, Mac Brazel drove into Roswell and stopped at Sheriff Wilcox's station and reported the debris. Sheriff George Wilcox dispatched 2 deputies to investigate the ranch, and he telephoned the 509th Bombardment Group at the Roswell Army Base. The Roswell Air Force Base housed the 509th Bombardment Group. That was the only atomic bomb group at the time. They are the ones who dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. There was no other bomb groups at all. Like, that was the only one. Okay. The Secret Service officer, Major Jesse Marcel from the 509th Bomb Group, arrived at Sheriff Wilcox's office. With him was another Secret Service man dressed in civilian clothing. His name was Sheridan Cavet. I think that's how you say it. Marcel phoned the commander at the 509th, Colonel William Blanchard. The commander ordered Jesse and the other man, Sheridan Cavet, to investigate the ranch. It was dark by the time they got to the ranch. The first 2 officers had completely missed the location of the debris field, but they managed to find a circle of sand in a pasture that had been melted into glass. Most people have never even heard that. I know I hadn't, and I think there was only one documentary that I heard that in, so, with stuff like this, you really need to compare notes. So if it gets talked about on more than one book, documentary, whatever, online, wherever you're getting your information, then you can probably trust it. But if you only hear it once or twice, that's up to you to decide. I believe this because of the person who was talking about it was in tears about this. But but Sheriff Wilcox's daughter, Phyllis McGuire, said it was bigger than a football field. Huge. A very huge circle had been burnt. They ended up spending the night at the ranch. They did not go back to Roswell that night. I have to scroll, sorry. On July 7th, 1947, Major Jesse Marcel used a Geiger counter on the piece of metal Brazel took to his shed and got no reading. Then they collected all of the debris that would fit into Marcel's Buick and an army truck, and then at dusk headed back to Roswell. The night prior, Major Jesse Marcel and Sheridan Cavett were collecting debris, as mentioned, but on the way back to Roswell, Major Marcel stopped at his house. He lived just off the base, and he wanted his wife and his 11-year-old son to see it. Marcel Jr. said when he came in, he was really excited. It was 1 to 2 a.m., and he wanted us to see what he was bringing in. He said, "This is debris from a flying saucer." Um, it was all brought in, and it was spread out on the kitchen floor, and we just looked at it. Marcel picked up a rod about 1.5 feet long and thin. It was in the shape of a capital I, so they called it the I-beam. I said, "Real creative, guys." But Marcel Jr. said, "I picked up this particular I-beam and held it up to the kitchen light. That's when I saw the symbols. I thought at first this must be hieroglyphics or something. It looked sort of alien to me." Marcel Jr.'s father said, "Son, you may be the first person to ever see writing from another world." By the way, I actually saw a documentary like the night before last that had Jesse Marcel himself in it. I had never seen one that had Jesse Marcel, just his son, never him. Anyways, they all believe that it was a flying saucer. I mean, his dad was in the army. He was actually a Secret Service man. He wasn't in the army. He was a Secret Service man. Remember, this was before the CIA was created. Actually, the CIA was created 6 weeks after Roswell. That's when the National Security Act was signed, and that's why, because they created the CIA then, and that is why. Anyways, on July 8th, 1947, Mac Brazel was flown over the ranch in an attempt to locate whatever survivors or debris may be left behind. They took Mac because he knew the area well, and because they were lightweight holding him hostage. They were holding this guy hostage. They wouldn't let him leave because they didn't want him to speak about it. The 509th Bomb Group initiated an aerial rescue. Upon searching, the military lost sight of Mac Brazel. He ran away. He actually went over to the owner of KGFL Radio, Walt Whitmore, and sorry, they found him, and he suggested that they go out to his house, which was on the extreme far side of Roswell, but they felt that it would give them a good opportunity to get information out of Mac, which is what the Army had been trying to prevent. They offered him a place to stay so that he could get away from the people that were asking him questions. And I put in parentheses, so you held him hostage so you could interview him and no one else could. Good. Anyway, meanwhile, a civil engineer, an archaeologist, and a soldier all claimed to be eyewitnesses of a second crash site. The scene was described as follows. There was a crashed disc laying in the sand, debris scattered everywhere. Laying on the ground were little humanoid bodies, smaller in size than a human, 4 or 5 feet tall. They were very thin, and their heads looked too big for their bodies, by human standards. Just a sec. I actually drew a picture of this, if I can find it real quick. There it is. Not, there it's not. This is not my definition of real quick, sorry. I don't know where it went. Oh, I have to show you guys this just because my alien has such a nice butt. Let me see if I can, like, I wish my butt looked that good. And my hands are, I chew on my fingers. It is what it is. I've been doing it. I've had anxiety my whole life, so I don't care. I don't care what people think about me either, so whatever. Anyway, To learn more about the desert, a group of archaeologists came to the desert on the morning of July 8, 1947. Before the Army could reach the crash site, a civil engineer, Lieutenant Grady L. Barnett, came for an irrigation project and came upon the crash site by mistake. Vern Matias, I think that's how you say his last name, Matias, oh yeah, best friend of Grady, he said, I'm going to tell you something that I'm not supposed to discuss, but I came across this shape on the ground, which was the shape of a flying saucer, and it had split open. He jumped up out of his truck and went down to the site. There were beings on the ground, and there was a silver-colored suit. And they were in a silver-colored suit. They were 3 to 4 feet high. The suits were rather tight-fitting. They were covering every part of their body except the head and hands. The shape of their heads were pear-shaped and hairless. There was an archaeological team that arrived shortly after Barney. Then the military came and surrounded the area. They called everyone together and briefed them on the situation and told them that this was not to be divulged to anybody, not to say one word, and to forget that they had ever seen it. Keep in mind, these testimonies, though, these people did not know each other. This was their first time ever meeting each other, and they never spoke again after. They had only met once at Roswell when they came into contact with one another, so for them to have the exact same story is insane if it's not true. Anyway, Grady was standing right next to the bodies. He was close enough to touch them when the group of archaeologists arrived. I wanted to be an archaeologist my whole life. I still do. I've held it in for a long time, says an elderly terminally ill woman to a nurse. The nurse was stunned at first because this patient was typically not responsive or alert enough to speak. She was acting very strangely and suspicious, asking for the curtains to be closed. She said she had been out in the desert with a group of people who were rock hunting, and that she was never supposed to be there. Then she proceeded to say that she wished she never had been. They were walking, and they went over a hill and saw a shiny object crash landed in the sand. She said one of the men around the crash lifted up a blanket that was on the ground, and there was a little body. She couldn't believe it. There were actually little people with very large heads and very big eyes, some kind of shiny material on. I can't remember if she said blue or silver, but she said it was so shiny it was almost fluid-like. She became very upset and said, but you mustn't ever tell anyone or they'll find you. The government will find you. Army officials eventually found Mac Brazel at Walt Whitmore's house and put him under house arrest. House arrest, you guys. House arrest. They interrogated him for hours to try to find out what he said and what he didn't say. They even subjected him to a complete physical examination. Why? Why is that necessary? On July 8th, Jesse Marcel also reported to Commander Blanchard. Colonel Blanchard ordered the marshals to surround the debris field and post guards, sealing off roads leading to the crash site. Then Colonel Blanchard reported to the 8th Air Force headquarters in Fort Worth. Soon the Pentagon sent a special team from Washington to Roswell. At about 11 a.m., Lieutenant Roger Hott finished a press release which read, "The Army Air Force has announced that a flying disc has been found and in possession of the U.S. Army." At about 4 p.m. on July 8, 1947, General Raji... oh my god, I am getting tongue twisted. Hold on. On July 8, 1947, General Roger Ramey conducted a press release at Fort Worth, changing the account to the recovery of a Rowan weather balloon. On July 9, 1947, radio station KGFL's Walt Whitmore got a very special phone call from Washington. He was ordered not to broadcast his interview with Mac Brazel. Judd Roberts said, "They said if we wanted to keep our license, we would not use our interview on the air because that would only give us about 24 hours to find something else to do for a living besides the radio." Basically, they were going to fire them and make sure that they could never work in the radio business or industry ever again if they released that press release. Army officers searched all the radio stations and newspapers in Roswell. They seized all copies of the original press release and anything else they found that pertained to the story. Escorted by officers, Mac Brazel showed up at KGFL radio station with a brand new story, nothing like the one he had told the day prior. The general public was led to believe that General Roger Ramey was taking the flak. It was all part of a carefully orchestrated cover-up. Lieutenant Roger Hott is portrayed as jumping the gun, but he was given the order to put out the press release. He believes that he himself, as well as Colonel Blanchard, were set up. Roger Ramey was the commander of the 509th Bomb Group at Fort Worth. General Ramey ordered Colonel Blanchard to send his serviceman, Major Marcel, to Fort Worth. Marcel took to the general's orders. He took the debris to the general's office, packed in a box. The general then led the major into another room, suggesting they take a look at a map. When they returned, the box was gone, and in its place was a damaged weather balloon. Next, General Ramey called in the reporters and said, "Just a mistake," he announced. Major Marcel and the 509th Bomb Group had goofed. Besides, this was a new type of weather balloon. It was case closed by mid-afternoon. But we do know some of the debris had already been delivered to the general earlier that day. If it were only a weather balloon, why hadn't he said that then and there? The photo Jesse Marcel posed with was an actual weather balloon. They made him change his story, and as such, you can see the order in his hands and the pictures that he poses in. That is the general's orders to change his account to match the description of the weather balloon and not a flying disc. Frankie Rowe is the daughter of a fireman who was called to the scene that fateful day. Daddy came in so excited, and he said what he saw was not of this world. There were 2 bodies laying outside the crash, and one, what he called little person, walking around. He said one was still alive. And what I heard was that there was 2 dead aliens and 1 alive alien, and 1 lived from 1947 to 1953. And everything that I've heard always says that there was 2 dead, 1 alive. I mean, everybody. 4 aliens, 3 aliens, 2 aliens. But I always repeatedly hear 3 aliens or 2 aliens and 1 dead, or 2 dead aliens and 1 alive alien, sorry. Anyways. He said 1 was still alive. He said that the other 2 were dead and that the 1 was alive and was very sad. My dad would not have gotten excited about a weather balloon. He was not easily excitable. This was the most excited I had ever seen him in his life. He had acquired a piece of metal to show the family. They couldn't burn it or cut it. They all had a chance to play with it for a little while, and it was laying on the table, so I picked it up. I played with it for about 5 minutes. When you would wad it up in your hand, you couldn't feel that it was there. It would go to a piece that was so small, you had to check to make sure that it was even still there. And when you would drop it, it would spread all out on the table, just like it had been previously, without a scratch, a dent, nothing in it. Perfect, smooth, just like it had been. And that's how everybody describes this metal, guys. Anyway, sounds like a weather balloon. She said, yes, I did handle it. And, oh wait, hold on. I skipped part. Oh, shortly after they were visited by a member of the military, Frankie said, yes, I did handle it. And he started emphasizing, no, you did not. But my mother was very strict, so we didn't lie. So I did insist on, yes, I saw it, and yes, I held it. And he got mad, and he got louder, and he had a baton, and he took it out. He started beating his hand with it. Every time he said something, he would hit it against his hand. He said, I want you to understand. You were never there. You did not see anything. You did not hear their conversation, and you can't. And if you can't understand this, there are things that we can do. She was crying and wiped a tear away when she said this. He said, they can take you out to the desert, in the middle of the desert, and this here is a big desert. No one would ever know what happened to you. The only way I'm going to let you stay around is if you promise you'll never talk about this for the rest of your life. Jesse Marcel Jr. said, I was only an 11-year-old boy at the time, and even I knew what a weather balloon looked like. If they were using that as a cover story, it must be something extraordinary. Weather balloons didn't carry passengers, so why did they ever go out looking for survivors if it was a weather balloon? They did. They took Mac Brazel to go look for survivors. They made him go. They forced him. John Mostraub. He was given the task of replicating the mandal taken from a creature of an unknown origins. He worked as a veterans technician hospital in Dayton, Ohio, 30 minutes from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where it said the 2 dead aliens were taken. Glenn Dennis is the mortician at Roswell. He says he got quite a few calls the night of Roswell, and he was asked for child-sized coffins. Phyllis McGuire, sheriff's daughter, says that the sand burnt to glass, and she said it was the size of a football field. This is not everything that she said. It's just all that I wrote down, I think. Hold on. Yeah, okay. The CIA wasn't also invented in September 1947. Lieutenant Roger Hawk completed a report entirely about Roswell and the events that transpired. He had the report notarized by a professional and told them not to release the report until after his death. Hawk's report ties in with the town mortician at the time, Glenn Dennis, who claimed the mortuary was contacted by the base on several occasions in one night. They were asked to supply a number of child-sized coffins. Sorry. Philip Corso also had a genuine lengthy military career. He was a colonel, and in 1997 he published the book The Day After Roswell. In the book, and in a video recorded by the Disclosure Project, he spoke of an amazing experience he witnessed in 1947 while working on duty as an officer at Fort Riley, Kansas, where he claims to have seen a lifeless alien body just a few days after the reported UFO crash at Roswell. He said there were 5 trucks coming through here from an airfield in New Mexico, and they were heading for Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. They told me to be careful and to watch the area because something sensitive was there. They asked me, "Do you want to see it, sir?" And I told him, "Yeah, let's go look." At first, I thought it was a child because it was small. Then I looked at its head and all, and this was happening only in a matter of seconds. And I put the end of the sheet back down over the body, and the head was different. The arms were thin, and the body was gray. In 1961, Corso became chief of the Pentagon's Foreign Technology Desk in Army Research and Development. Corso said, "When I came to research and development, I heard the reports, the top-secret reports from Walter Reed Hospital. At Walter Reed, there was a laboratory, and that was our laboratory, whatever, and we financed it. That's who did autopsies for us." According to Corso, the autopsies of the small bodies detailed in the reports were of alien bodies from Roswell. Corso said, "When I saw the body, there was nothing else to go on. Later on, I got the top secret reports that experts had done, our own experts. They had cut the body open, the brain and all. The brain was different. Most of the body was different. There was no nose, no mouth, no ears, no vocal cords, no digestive system, no sexual organs. And we just kept it to ourselves. Only certain people knew about it, head to head, brain to brain. No paper trail. Because they all talked telepathically. And they really did. I don't give a fuck what you believe. We do have the capabilities to telepathically speak. We just don't know how to do it. We only use 4 to 7% of our brains. And they would love it if we used less than that." And in his book, the former Pentagon official also revealed what his position at the Foreign Technologies Desk actually was. Corso said it was his job to slowly disperse into the private sector to big corporations some of the alien technology that had been acquired over the years, starting at Roswell in 1947, but going up to the present day. Actually, Roswell wasn't the first thing. Everybody thinks it was, but the first thing that happened was at Black Forest in Germany. The Nazis actually brought alien technology to us, and that's actually the only reason why we won the space race, because after we beat the Nazis in Germany, they fled west to come to America because they didn't want to be captured by the Soviets. They were like, "F that, we'd rather go over here," and yeah, we did interrogate the hell out of them, and they eventually worked for us. And since they worked for us, they built our rockets, our lasers, all that stuff, and we beat everybody to the moon, and that's the only reason. Nazi technology. And the Nazi technology supposedly came from the Black Forest crash in Germany, and that happened before World War II. They actually created a UFO for World War II called the Haunebu. I think that's what the Haunebu 1, 2, and 3. And there were Foo Fighters that flew around during World War II, but nobody will claim those. So they were alien, maybe. Nobody's ever claimed to have made those, the Foo Fighters. Anyway, Corso said that it was his job to slowly disperse into the private sectors. Yeah, okay. Starting at Roswell but going up to present day. The result of this was the integrated circuit, or microchip. This was supposedly invented by a man named Jack Kilby. But hold on, sorry. But if this man invented the greatest invention since the telephone, why is there no documentaries about him anywhere? I looked him up everywhere. I can't find documentaries on TV, Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, on the internet. I mean, you can look up information about him on like Wikipedia, but you can't find a documentary about the guy. Go look up the Wright brothers right now. See how many of those you can find. That's how it should be. Anyway, fiber optics, night vision goggles, lasers, Revlar body armor. Corso headed this technology department, but in this context, foreign meant extraterrestrial. Philip Corso also wrote about turning over alien technology to a top secret private sector, a global entity. What this does is seriously makes congressional oversight nearly impossible. It takes it outside the scope of the Freedom of Information Act. That means there's nobody overseeing it. There's nobody telling them what to do, nobody telling them what they can or can't do. There's nobody giving them orders. They just do what they want, when they want, however they want. Walter Haut said, I was called to headquarters and I was given copies of a press release which stated that we had in our possession a flying disc. I was told to hand deliver it to the foreign news media that we had in town during the time, 2 radio stations and 2 newspapers. They quickly distributed it, and it was front page headline on the Roswell Daily Record. And then I have the whole press report that was notarized by Walter Haut and everything that he claims to have seen and did. Number 1, my name is Walter G. Haut. Number 2, I was born June 3rd, 1922. Number 3, my address is located in Roswell, New Mexico. Number 4, I am retired. Number 5, in July 1947, I was stationed at the Roswell Army Air Base in Roswell, New Mexico, serving as the base public information officer. I had spent the 4th of July weekend, Saturday the 5th and Sunday the 6th, at my private residence about 10 miles north of the base, which was located south of town. I was aware that someone had reported the remains of a downed vehicle by mid-morning, after my return to duty at the base on Monday, July 7th. I was aware Major Jesse A. Marcel, head of intelligence, was sent by the base commander, Colonel William Blanchard, to investigate. Number 7. By late in the afternoon that same day, I would learn that additional civilian reports came in regarding a second crash site just north of Roswell. I would spend the rest of my day attending to my regular duties, hearing little, if nothing more. Number 8. On Tuesday morning, July 8, 1947, I would attend the regularly scheduled staff meeting at 7:30 a.m. Besides Blanchard, Marcel, CIC Captain Sheridan Covett, Colonel James I. Hopkins, the operations officer, Major Patrick Saunders, the base, adjutant. Sorry, I just don't. Major Isidore Brown, the personnel officer, Lieutenant Colonel Ulysses S. Nero, the supply officer, and from Carlswell, AAF in Fort Worth, Texas, Blanchard's boss, Brigadier General Roger Ramey, and his chief of staff, Colonel Thomas J. Dubose, were all in attendance. Sorry, that sounded horrible. The main topic of discussion was reported by Marcel and Covett regarding an extensive debris field in Lincoln County, approximately 75 miles northwest of Roswell. A preliminary briefing was provided by Blanchard about the second site, 40 miles north of town. Samples of wreckage were passed around the table. It was like any material I had or have ever seen in my life. Peaches which resembled metal foil, paper thin yet extremely strong, and pieces with unusual markings along their length were handed from man to man, each voicing their opinion. No one was able to identify the crash debris. Number 9. One of the main concerns discussed at the meeting was whether we should go public or not with the discovery. General Ramey proposed a plan which I believe originated with his bosses at the Pentagon. Attention needed to be diverted from the location. Too many civilians were already involved and the press already was informed. I was not completely informed how this would be accomplished. Number 10. At approximately 9:30 a.m., Blanchard phoned my office and dictated the press release of having in our possession a flying disc coming from a ranch northwest of Roswell, and Marcel flying the material to higher headquarters. I was able to deliver the news release to radio stations KGFL and KSWS and newspapers, the Daily Record and the Morning Dispatch. Number 11. By the time the news had hit the wire services, my office was inundated with phone calls from around the world. Messages stacked up on my desk, and rather than deal with the media concern, Colonel Blanchard suggested that I go home and hide out. Number 12. Before leaving the base, Colonel Blanchard took me personally to Building 84, a B-29 hangar, located on the east side of the tarmac. Upon first entering the building, I observed that it was under heavy guard, both outside and inside. Once inside, I was permitted from a safe distance to first observe the object just recovered north of town. It was approximately 12 to 15 feet in length, not quite as wide, about 6 feet high, and more of an egg shape. Light was poor, but its surface did appear metallic. No windows, portholes, wings, tail sections, or landing gear was visible. Number 13. Also from a distance, I was able to see a couple of bodies under a canvas tarpaulin. I don't know that word, sorry. Only the heads extended beyond the covering, and I was not able to make out any features. The heads did appear larger than normal, and the contour of the canvas over the bodies suggested the size of a 10-year-old child. At a later date in Blanchard's office, he would extend his arm about 4 feet off the ground to indicate the height. Number 14, I was informed of a temporary morgue set up to accommodate the recovered bodies. Number 15, I was informed that the wreckage was not hot, radioactive. Number 16, upon his return from Fort Worth, Major Marcel described to me taking pieces of the wreckage to General Roger Ramey's office, and after returning from a map room, finding the remains of a weather balloon and radar kite substituted while he was out of the room. Marcel was very upset over the situation and would not discuss it again. Sorry. 17. I would be allowed to make at least one visit to one of the recovery sites during military cleanup. I would return to the base with some of the wreckage, which I would display in my office. Number 18. I was aware of 2 separate teams which would return to each crash site months later for periodic searches of remaining evidence. Number 19. I am convinced that what I personally observed was some type of craft and its crew from outer space. That's what it says. Number 20. I have not been paid nor given anything of value to make this statement, and it is the truth to the best of my recollection. This statement is to remain sealed and secured until the time of my death, and at which my surviving family will determine its disposition. That's everything I have. You still think it's a weather balloon? I mean, I do have pictures too that goes along with all of this. I'm going to try to add it into this video. If I can't figure it out, I'm just going to post this video. If people watch it, cool. If not, whatever. And if you judge me, I personally don't give a fuck. Or sorry, I don't care. You can say whatever you want about me. I don't care. I have a don't care what people think about me policy. And I really don't. So I just want people to know the truth. I want people to actually start questioning the government, because the government is not your friend. The government filters everything in the media. They filter everything in the newspapers. They filter everything on news, all the political debates, anything on the internet, anything you Google. If you Google anything about aliens, it's a hoax automatically. Don't even bother. You have to find information from real books, documentaries. Amazon Prime's good. You can use YouTube. I don't prefer YouTube, but this is YouTube. So, I mean, you can use YouTube. There are good documentaries. You just have to, just like anything else, it doesn't matter where you get your information. You have to compare notes. You have to get information from one source, and then watch 10 or 20 more things about that same topic, Roswell, and compare notes and see what matches up and what doesn't, and then pick and choose the storyline yourself. That's what I think. I really think that human beings are capable of way more. I think that our brains are capable of telepathy, telekinesis. I think that we can do all that cool, awesome shit. I just think that the government doesn't want us to know about it, so we don't know about it, and we don't know how to use our powers. We do have powers. We are all ancestors to aliens. Sorry, but we are. I've been doing massive amounts of research since March 25th, 2020, and everything in ancient civilization says that we are ancestors. All the oldest man-made texts all say that we are ancestors of some type of alien, that some type of reptilian being that used to walk on 2 legs. Look up the Ubaid period. Ubaid period. Like look up the word period after that. But Ubaid period. They have so many statues and figurines of 2-legged reptiles that walked upright and breastfed their babies, just like we breastfeed our babies. And these were real creatures. They didn't imitate or replicate anything that wasn't real back in that day. Look it up. But yeah, think about it. open your mind a little bit, just a little. Roswell was not a weather balloon. It wasn't. And if you believe it was, then I don't even know why you watch this. I don't.